Hello, everyone. I'm Phyllis Dickerson, CEO of the African American Mayors Association, and I'm joined with my co-host, Mayor Van Johnson from the great city of Savannah, Georgia. Welcome, Van.
Hey, always great to be here with the mayors and colleagues of the African American Mayors Association, breaking it down.
Right. So thanks for joining us for our podcast, Our Mayors Breaking It Down. Today, we have Mayor Corey Woods from Tempe, Arizona. Can you believe it's a Black mayor in Tempe, Arizona?
I believe it's hot in Tempe, Arizona.
Right. So, Mayor Woods, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you so much. Appreciate you having me.
So, Mayor Woods, a lot of people don't know you yet in our listening audience. So, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure, I'd be more than happy to. So I'm Corey Woods, mayor of the city of Tempe, Arizona. I've been mayor since July of 2020. I just got sworn in for my second term back on July 1st. And so I'm excited to have another 4 years here in this incredible community. Tempe is the ninth largest city in the state of Arizona. We're also home to Arizona State University, the largest public university in the entire country. I personally, my background is more or less in nonprofit management and also in K-12 education. I've spent roughly about 13 to 14 years in the public education field when I'm not actually doing the job of being mayor. But my major interests are sort of in affordable housing, economic development, as well as transportation, and doing whatever we can to positively affect homelessness. So that's a lot about me, but I'm really looking forward to the conversation and really appreciate you having me on today.
Well, Mayor, congratulations on your second term, and I peep mayors. I look and see what mayors are doing, and you have really distinguished yourself, as you said, in the affordable housing space. I really want you to talk a little bit more about that and why that's been such a major driving point for you.
Well, I appreciate the question. I mean, the biggest thing for me was I got on council back in 2008 when I was 29 years old. And the biggest thing that really kind of piqued my interest in the affordable housing world was I had a lot of friends at that point in time who were graduating from Arizona State with their bachelor's degree or their master's degree or even doctoral degrees. And they could not find places to live in this community that were actually affordable. So you had this tremendous brain drain going on of people, getting these advanced degrees and then moving out of Tempe or frankly, even moving out of state to find more affordable housing, whether it was an apartment or purchasing a single family home somewhere else. And so something told me there's something wrong with this system. We have to find a way to ensure that people have the ability to if they've gone to all the local schools of the city of Tempe and also gone to community college or a 4-year institution, they should have the ability to take that knowledge and that degree that they earned here and put that degree to good use here in this city. But then I also think about it very much now on the complete other end. My father just celebrated his 85th birthday in mid-June. And so he lives in Phoenix and loved my dad. But at the same time, at this point, he's a senior living on a fixed income. I keep thinking the fastest growing group of people who are becoming homeless due to rising rents and just rising costs are frankly our seniors. And so, my father's, very lucky that he had enough money put away and he has myself and my brother who can provide some financial support if need be. But at the end of the day, a lot of our seniors, frankly, don't have those kinds of backstops. So we have to find ways to ensure that they're able to live out their years, frankly, with dignity. And so from my perspective, the affordable housing issue touches on both people who are younger and older. And it's something that I think we really have to try our best to get a handle on, whether it's housing affordability, but also housing supply. So it really is probably, from my perspective, the most critical issue that we face today in cities.
So, Mayor, what you talked about, you brought up the word, we always use the word affordable housing. My question is, affordable to who? So when we talk about affordable housing, I know it's our trigger word and we say it's affordable, but the question is affordable to who? So what is affordable housing?
So the very quick answer is affordable housing is based on something they call AMI or area median income. And that can obviously shift depending on what community or what state that you happen to live in. But that's sort of how they make the determination about what is truly affordable housing or what would qualify as workforce housing or what qualifies as market rate housing. So really it is that definition of area median income or AMI that really helps to kind of determine what is truly affordable. But what I think about all the time, just from a very basic standpoint, is can our teachers afford to live in this community? Can the people who are teaching our children how to read, write, or do arithmetic, can they still afford to live in the city of Tempe or anywhere in the state of Arizona? Because that's one of the things I would hear frequently is, hey, Corey, I'm a teacher in Tempe, but I'm driving in 40 to 45 minutes each way every day just to frankly help educate the next generation of youth. And can our nurses live here? Can our first responders still afford to live here? Can seniors living on a fixed income, as I talked about before, can they still afford to live here? So, from my perspective, that's my more kind of 30,000-foot high level perspective on affordable housing. Do we really have for people in all of those different professions or all of those stages of life? Can they still afford to live in this community? Because frankly, if they can't, you have really developed a community of the haves and the have-nots. You're not going to be a diverse, inclusive community that really is what we try to be here in the city of Tempe each and every day. And so, from my perspective, there are technical definitions about affordable housing, but to me, it really is about diversity and making sure that everyone, regardless of occupation or stage in life or income, can really afford to live within your community. And that's something I'm striving to do each and every day. It's not a finished issue. It's something that I work on constantly, but it's something I think we have to remain focused on all the time.
Well, then, Mayor, let's move from the discussion of the macro to the micro. So, again, you've been a very passionate voice. Let's talk about how Tempe, under your leadership, has dealt with affordable housing in terms of programs and services.
So the big program that we've done during my time is a program called Hometown for All, which was created by the city council back in late January of 2021. And it started through a conversation I was having with my housing staff, where I basically said, look, I had just become mayor a few months earlier. And I just said, look, I'm not going to be one of these mayors who or elected officials who sits around talking about affordable housing, but doesn't actually have any tools in place to create actual affordable housing, because that's just a lot of talk and it's a lot of lip service. If there's no actual dedicated revenue stream, if you don't have policies that are forward looking and try to find ways to make sure that everyone in your community, regardless of income or occupation, can still remain housed, then you're really not doing the job. And so that's where the Hometown for All program was birthed. We just sort of came up with this way to create a dedicated revenue stream that goes into a separate 501c3 nonprofit that the city runs called the Tempe Coalition for Affordable Housing. We call it the affiliate for short in city speak, but it really is a 501c3 nonprofit. And that's how we ensure that we are actually putting a down payment constantly into creating more affordable and attainable housing options for the people in the city. But I mean, but also that was what we did then. We're still continuing to build out those coffers. Oh, I should also say about that program, the money is really used for two purposes. It's used either to acquire other property within the city of Tempe. We are a landlocked city of about 40 square miles. So there is no more room to grow out. You now just have to grow up. And so, from our perspective, the ability to be a player in that market and have the ability to acquire additional property helps us to really then partner with affordable housing developers to produce attainable housing for all the folks I talked about earlier, for teachers, first responders, nurses, seniors, people of that nature. But then the second thing we also do is we use that money to actually then do environmental remediation and cleanup on existing city-owned sites to get that property ready for partnerships with people who build affordable housing, because that can also be a challenge. I can say, hey, I've got 3 acres and I want to turn it over to an affordable housing developer. But if that's a Superfund site, or if there were other chemical contaminants under the land, at the point that they've actually done the environmental remediation, well, now their costs have gone so high that they actually can't produce affordable housing anymore because they're already way over budget. So if we can give those affordable housing developers a clean piece of dirt, they can actually produce housing at the income levels that we need them to produce it at. But that's what we did 3 years ago. So people say, well, what are you doing now? Even though that program is very much still in existence, we actually have a bond question on the ballot this coming November. It's a $32 million bond question that is completely dedicated to affordable housing. So we can put an even bigger down payment into that 501c3 Tempe Coalition for Affordable Housing to really accelerate what we need to do. Because we know the problem is not getting easier, it's getting more challenging and more difficult every day. And we decided we couldn't just wait for the other program to build up those resources that we need to make a serious dent. We needed to put a question in front of the voters this coming November in what is probably the biggest bond election we've ever had in the city of Tempe's history. If you know me well, I'm not a person that likes to play small ball. I'm all about doing things big and swinging for the fences at all times. But that $32 million bond question will be on the ballot this November, and it's my hope that our voters approve it and we can really start building that next generation of affordable housing, not tomorrow, but frankly, yesterday.
Wow.
All right. We just named it and claimed it.
Yeah.
Yeah. There we go.
Done.
So you are one of those cutting edge mayors. And so you were the first city to come up with water surveillance.
What is that?
So
Right?
what is that?
Watch me.
Most mayors are like, what is that? But you came up with it first, and you were the author, creator, finisher of it. So tell our listening audience what it is and why you did it.
So I can steal it.
Did you say it cut out for a second? Did you say the affordable or the wastewater?
No, wastewater surveillance.
Okay, I want to cut out 2 seconds. Okay, yeah, the wastewater program. So that actually, I will say, started under my predecessor, and it started because they were looking for ways initially to track opioid usage in our community. Because they figured, hey, it's one thing to get numbers from the county, or another thing is to get numbers back from the state or the feds. But what we really needed was data that was local to the city of Tempe only. So that wastewater tracking system was used to actually find out if we had a problem with opioids in the community, and if we did, specifically what zip codes or what areas within our community wasn't really a challenge. So that system got set up at that point. Then when COVID-19 happened, we were able to pivot that technology to actually use it to detect COVID-19 levels in wastewater. So we could then, first of all, know exactly what we were dealing with, but also so that we could surge resources into those particular parts of our community that might have been experiencing an outbreak or just a higher level of COVID-19 infection. But the other thing that was really important, and we all know that we've all worked in municipal government here on this podcast, the fact of the matter is, we remember that COVID-19 time and how hard it was when we're talking about masking and social distancing. And if we said, well, hey, we're going to tell you that you need to wear a mask because there are higher levels of COVID-19 infection going on, and people would say, oh, I don't believe that data, and I don't believe these numbers, and that's not real, and y'all are making this up. And so we knew we needed to have some kind of system that really allowed us to pinpoint not what we were getting from the federal government or frankly, even from Maricopa County, but frankly, we knew we had wastewater testing that was being done in the city of Tempe proper. And we could tell people, no, this is not data that's coming from on high from somewhere else. This is data that's coming from the zip code directly adjacent to you, because we know it's your wastewater, and we frankly know the infections are higher. And that's why we're asking you to wear a mask. That's why we're asking you to still maintain social distancing. That's why we're pushing additional resources into that part of our community. It's because we have actual quantifiable, objective evidence that says there is a problem in this area, and we have to do everything we can as a local government to address it. And so that was sort of how we ended up in that system. We've gotten additional money in grants since then because the program has proven to be so successful. But we really are very excited about that technology, that it can be used for COVID-19 detection or opioids or possibly other things down the road. I frankly think with the use of that technology and a lot of those innovations, the sky is frankly the limit.
Wow. So, and I want to go back something we were talking about a little bit earlier. Most young mayors, newer mayors, we find now, and Phyllis and I were talking about this earlier. They used to go traditionally. You serve on council for a while, then you go to vice mayor, mayor pro tem, or at large, and then you go to mayor. And nowadays, I mean, they just going straight in. And you're a mayor that, like I kind of went more the traditional track. I wanted to know your thoughts about that. And do you think you were better prepared because you kind of went the longer route to mayor?
That's a great question, Mayor. I mean, my route was the route that I chose to take because that was sort of how I was raised in politics. It was sort of, look, if you want to do something like get involved in municipal government, you're going to have to start at a level where people are willing to sort of allow you to kind of get into the mix. I mean, and from my standpoint, I mean, I moved here in 2003 to Tempe, Arizona, so I'd only been in the community for 5 years at the point that I was elected to the city council. I mean, I was
Where you from?
I was born in Atlanta, so directly kind of adjacent in that area, Savannah. So, but I grew up mostly in the New York area. And so I, did that, went to college at the University of Michigan, and then just continued moving west and landed here in Tempe, Arizona to attend grad school at Arizona State University. But I'd only been here for about 5 years at the point that I got elected to the council the first time, and I was 29, so I was probably the second or third youngest council member ever to get elected. I was the first African American council member in the city's history. And so
Wow.
from my perspective, I think it was a way to get my foot in the door, so people got a chance to know me, and they got comfortable with who I was. But frankly, it allowed me to learn about a lot of the issues that were going on in the city. I didn't know anything about zoning at the point that I was 29 years old. And that's probably a lot of what you do as a local elected official is deal with zoning issues, especially in a community that's growing and expanding at a very rapid pace. So it was kind of the more traditional route to your point, and kind of what you're taught when you're getting involved in these systems. But for me, it was frankly helpful because I had an opportunity to learn. And I acquired and gained a lot of knowledge over the 8 years that I was on the city council that gave me the ability to run for mayor at the age of 40 and win. Because at that point, I had all of this knowledge from the 8 years that I was on the city council that I was able to draw upon when I was talking to residents. And frankly, not even just the knowledge of the system itself, but frankly, I had the connections in the community. I knew the neighborhood association presidents, I knew the presidents of the homeowners associations, and I just sort of generally knew the movers and shakers in the community. So not only did I then at that point have the technical knowledge that you need to do this kind of a job, but I had the connections and the resources based on all the years that I had spent shaking hands and sitting in people's living rooms and going to barbecues and things of that nature. So for me, that was the path that worked the best, and that was the journey that I was on. But I know a lot of these young folks now, they're not doing it that way. They're just going right from private citizenry into the mayor's office. And so quite honestly, I mean, hey, look, more power to you. If you can jump to that because the community is ready for a change, or you're presenting something that people really want or feel like they need, hey, you know what? Make the jump and go directly into the mayor's chair. But for me personally, I mean, I did it probably what would be perceived as the more traditional way, and that way has worked out very well for me.
Right.
So you mentioned Arizona State. So what kind of partnerships or lessons learned do you have being the mayor in a university campus like that?
You learn that when you have a large university the size and scale of ASU, you have to have a close working relationship with the president of the university and the senior members of his team, which we do. So Dr. Michael Crow is the president at ASU. We meet on a quarterly basis. So we have an opportunity for myself to sit down with him, usually his executive vice president and chief financial officer, as well as his head of government relations. And so we meet on a quarterly basis. But also, of course, we have an open line of communication. So if something comes up in between, then we don't wait for that quarterly meeting. We jump on the phone or jump on email, and we try to address the issue right then and there. I happen to also, from a full disclosure standpoint, I actually work for Arizona State University and will have been there for 8 years this coming November. So I'm also kind of part of that family in an official way as well, which probably also helps to streamline some of those communications and conversations. But I would say the university's been a great partner to us. I mean, do we always see completely 100% eye to eye on everything? No, but frankly, spouses don't see eye to eye on everything. I'm not married, so I don't know, but at least I've heard. You know, but uh, but I will tell you that I mean, but that open line of communication and generally having the same thoughts and visions about where the city and where the university needs to go has been tremendously helpful to me personally. I mean, and Arizona State and Dr. Crow have been very helpful. I mean, one quick example, they actually have given well over $100,000 annually to the city of Tempe. It was at my request about 3 or 4 years ago to try to hire more people for our Hope Team, which is our homeless outreach group that works in terms of contacting people who are currently living on the streets and connecting them with shelter and resources and food, or reconnecting them with families. That was through a system when I first became mayor. Dr. Crow said to me, "If there's ever anything, mayor, that I can do to assist you, please make sure to let me know because we have assets here at the university that you might be able to tap into." So when we were having a very big challenge with unsheltered homelessness, I reached out to him directly and said, "Dr. Crow, you said to ask, and so now I'm here asking." I could really use some additional support to hire additional people to actually make those contacts with people who are currently living on the streets. And he stepped up immediately and said, I will pay for two of those positions, which is well over $100,000. That will be stationed in the downtown area, which is where the university is primarily located, but can be used anywhere in that downtown zip code. I will pay for that out of my own general fund budget, so the money doesn't have to come out of your budget or the city's pocket, because we recognize that we are partners here between the city and the university, and we want to make sure that we're doing our part. So that's one example, I think, of what good conversation and collaboration can do when it comes to sharing of resources.
So, we're winding this conversation down. You got a last question for Mayor Wood?
You do it.
All righty. So, Mayor, this has been bugging me. You're a good looking, single, educated Black man. Where is the family and all of that? Or are you like we're Johnson over here that your wife is Savannah, Georgia? Is your wife
He's not married to Savannah. Savannah only has one husband.
I know where you're going with this. So here's the I really am in a lot of ways very married to the job. I mean, it's actually very challenging. I tell people, I mean, look, I have been in relationships as mayor and as a council member. I've not had the privilege of getting married yet or having children, and I always wanted to. That was always one of my goals, was to get married and have kids, but it hasn't happened up to this point. But I will say a lot of that probably is because I spend so much time working. These jobs as mayors, I mean, you are literally working 24/7, almost 365. I mean, it is, with cell phones and social media and email and everything else, it's just very hard to tune out. And my father, tells me all the time. He says, remember when you were a kid, I would take you to go to a baseball game or a basketball game before he even had a pager. He said the beautiful thing about that situation was once you were away from the office, I was just with you, my son. We were at the game and we could hang out and talk and eat popcorn or hot dogs or whatever else, and no one bothered us. Nowadays, because of all of these advances and innovations in technology, which I love, I got my cell phone right here. And we're obviously speaking over a virtual platform. I'm very happy that we have those technological advances, but it also means you are definitely much more tethered to the job than you normally might be. I just got off of a week-long vacation, the first one I'd really taken in 2 years, and I was on the phone at the time, making calls to my city manager, talking to constituents, and people are like, "You really have to keep doing this job." And I'm like, "Look, I could check out if I wanted to, but if there are things that are of an urgent nature, I have to be here to address them as the leader of this community." And so I think that is also part of the challenge when it comes to dating and relationships and getting married and having kids. It's like, I think it might even be easier if you kind of get into this business and you already have your spouse and you have your children, then you've all kind of signed up for that journey and that path together. But I can tell you, I mean, there have been women that I've met have gone, "Hey, I'm not signing up for this. This job is crazy. Like, why? What are you doing?" And I'm like, but I love public service and I love public policy. And so, quite honestly, I have to give it my all if I really want to make sure that I'm doing the job to the best of my ability. But I have tried in my second term now. I've made a promise to myself that I'm going to do a much better job at that work life balance and making sure that I can, run the city and do the things that I need to do, but make sure that I can also take the time to eventually start that family or make sure that I'm with a woman that I care about, because I do want that. I don't like going home to myself anymore. I want the ability to have someone else I can go and talk to and hear about how her day is as well.
You have to start a mayor's dating app or something.
There we
I mean,
go.
at the end of the day, mayor, you're still responsible, and mayors don't have a Camp David to go to.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
and the fact is that I just took a 3-day vacation myself, which included a weekend, and people, what you doing gone? All these questions. I mean, Mayor Adams did that in New York, and folks, went crazy. Where is he? I mean, it's unfortunate and it's really unfair
People, people
that it's like that.
Mayor, I appreciate you saying that. That's what people don't realize that, and people will say things to you as a mayor, which is like, "Oh, well, you just need to go away, and don't let these people bother
So
you."
you
And
can do
it's like, well, that's very. It's like this isn't Nike. I mean, like
it.
this is mayor life. I mean, it's a whole different kind of ball game, and frankly, so people who are sometimes not in the worlds that all three of us are in, it's very easy to say things like that. But we all know, as people who have either been mayors or been high level staff for mayors and other high level elected officials, we all know that that's not how things work. People now have an expectation that you are on all the time, that they will call you. I had someone a few weeks ago who was calling me at 11:30 at night. And then I woke up the next morning and they were texting me at 11:30 saying, "What's wrong with you? Answer your phone." It's 11:30 at night. I'm sleeping like any other normal human being, but they were raking me over the coals because I actually had the nerve to sleep. I
How
mean,
dare you?
so how dare I? The unmitigated gall, So no, I hear you. It's very challenging. I mean, I would love to put an out of office assistant on my Microsoft Outlook or some and say, hey, look, I'm gone. Contact the vice mayor, contact the city manager. But I mean, a lot of people will accept that, but you will have some people who will take that and go on Facebook or go on X or Instagram and say, can you believe this guy had the nerve to take off a week in July to go to take a vacation? So I mean, that is one of the challenges when it comes to not only starting relationships, but the maintenance of personal relationships when you're in a job like this, because the job can easily suck you in 24/7. So it really is imperative and incumbent upon us as mayors to say, look, I have to draw a line somewhere. And if people don't accept that, that's fine. But at the same time, but do I want to be 80 years old coming home to my own rocking chair by myself? The answer is frankly no. So I'm doing the best I can to create a better work-life balance in this second term.
Well, Mayor, thank you on behalf of everybody for, I know for people who don't understand, we understand. So thank you for just, going hard in the paint for your city every day. I know the citizens appreciate it, even if they don't always tell you that.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate it.
So, Mayor Woods, thank you for joining us for our Mayor's Breaking It Down podcast. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And we look forward to having you again soon.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate the opportunity. Have a great day.
Thank you, Mayor.